Guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Shannon. Of course, if you have not been here before, welcome. If you have been here before, welcome back. You guys know what is up with that. So in today's video, we're going to be talking about the Natasha Denona Bronze Palette, as you can see from my little thumbnail. So we're going to be talking about this. I'm going to be doing a little review on it. I will be putting in some inserts of me applying this look that I have on today, and we're just going to talk about the overall formula of the palette, whether I think it's worth it, and why I kind of have some regrets on buying it. So if you're interested in seeing it, then just keep watching. Okay guys, so like I said, we're gonna be talking about the bronze palette. This is the outer packaging of the palette. It basically is the same as the actual packaging. It gives you all the shade names also on the back here if you're interested in the shade names and all the ingredients and things like that. It is an alcohol-free product. It's made in Italy, and it is mineral oil free as well, if that's something that's important to you. It does have a shelf life of 24 months. I have heard though a few people say they feel like the shelf life on these isn't the best. Not sure if that's just the bigger palettes. I think it was Casey Holmes that mentioned it. I haven't noticed it, but I'll have to try one of my older palettes to kind of like figure that out. But I thought I would mention that in here. Okay, so this is basically a variety of matte shallows and metallic duochrome shadows. There's a total of, I believe, 15 shadows in here. So this is what all the shadows look like. So just so you guys can get a look, there is a mirror in here. There's a total of, like I said, 15 shadows. There is a total, I believe, of like 5 mattes. I'm not sure if they consider this one a matte. It's kind of more of like a satiny kind of matte finish, but the rest are all duochrome. This is the duochrome down here. The rest are all kind of like shimmery, kind of like metallic formulas, especially this one up here. It's like really metallic and reflective. It's one of my favorite shades in the palette. But yeah, that's all the shades there. So this palette is considered one of her like mid-size palettes. Like she has the bigger palettes that are really pricey. She has these palettes, and then she has the really, really tiny palettes for like, I think it's like $25 US or around like the $30 Canadian mark. This was, I think, $85 or $87 Canadian. I think it's $65 in the US for retail value, just if you're curious. I like the packaging. As you can see though, it does get like dirty pretty quickly, but I do like the packaging. It's one of her prettiest packagings, I think, on these like little tiny, like the midi, not tiny, but the midi palettes, like the medium size palettes. These are my favorite size actually in her palettes, and I think these are the ones that more people gravitate towards because obviously that like $170, whatever it is Canadian, $125 US pricing is really high for most people. I only have a couple of those palettes, and I probably wouldn't purchase another one of the really expensive ones because it's just like too much money. But I do like the pricing on these ones. I will say I do regret this a little bit, and we'll get into that at the end of the video. Right now though, I'm going to insert some clips of me actually trying this palette and the look that I actually have on my eyes today. I'll kind of come in. I didn't actually film me putting on the eyeliner, but I filmed everything else so you could see how everything works, but I'll put that in there now. I went in with the shade First Beach, which is the shade at the very bottom of the palette, like the very last shade in the palette. I've used this shade multiple times. It's a great transition color if you are kind of my skin tone, like the light to medium skin tone. I do think she could have added in some deeper shades, like deeper transitions, but there is enough transitions I think that will fit a wide variety of skin tones. All neutral, of course, like kind of the brown, beige, kind of like mustardy tones, which are really pretty. I blended that out. You can see there's like no issue with blending that out of my eyes. Went on effortlessly. No issues at all. By the way, I used a JH brush, one of the JH Morphe brushes. I can't think of the number on it, but that's what I went in with initially. I'm not going to mention all the brushes I use, but I believe I used like the Delium Tools, one of the Golden Triangle blend-in brushes, the 785, I think it is. There was another, I think a Reffer brush that I used in here. The Reffer, it might have been the number 3 brush. But anyways, we'll continue on. I then went in with the shade Rhodium. I'm not sure if I'm saying that shade right. That's kind of the duochrome shade in here, the kind of purpley or like deeper gray toned. It does have a purple tone to it, but it does come off as a little bit of a black base when you apply it to the eyes. I initially started off in the outer corner, and I decided to put that all over my lid. This is one of the shades I'm not super impressed with. Like I said, I'll get into that at the end of the video, but I did continue to layer this on both eyes quite a few times. You'll see that in the clip. I'm not going to show all of it, but I did layer this on both eyes quite a few times just to give you an idea. Once I had that layered, I went in with the shade right beside it, which is kind of like the deepest shade in the palette, called Deep Dive. This one is really dark. It does kind of have like a satiny finish to it. I'm not sure if this is like her cream to matte formula, but it kind of has that texture. I will mention that a lot of these shadows as well do have a bit of fallout. So if you don't like fallout, I just wanted to mention that. I don't care. This shade doesn't have a ton of fallout, but many of the other shades I mentioned do. But this Deep Dive shade isn't one of her creamy mattes. Can someone let me know? Because I feel like it kind of is. But I applied this on the outer corners, up into the crease, blended it out. You can see though that there are some times that it gets a bit patchy on my eyes. And I keep having to go back and blend, and you'll see me blending and blending and blending. I eventually go in a little bit with the shade Ridge, which is one of the more kind of neutrally beige mustardy tones, and also Sundown. I kind of like mix those two transition shades to kind of try to help blend out that edge, because I felt like I was still getting a bit of patchiness on the eyes. So I kind of kept going back and forth with those shades and trying to make it look, like it was actually blended out nicely. But I did have problems, if I'm going to be honest, with that shade. But overall, it did turn out okay. Obviously, you're seeing my eye look in the video. Now, the last thing I did is actually go in with the shade Silk, which I mentioned is my favorite kind of metallic shimmery shade in the palette. Like, I love this shade. And I just use my finger, tap this on like the first kind of part of my eyelid, and that was pretty much all I did with that shadow. I've used it multiple times though, so I love it, but I did want to mention I did use that shadow. Okay, so overall, guys, like I said, I wanted to use these two shades in particular. This is the duochrome, and this is the kind of like one that I feel like has that kind of more cream to powder finish. But I use these two shades particular in this tutorial because I felt like these shades were not like the bee's knees, I guess. Like, they weren't my favorite shades in the palette. Of all the shades in the palette, these are the two that I think gave me the most issue. The rest of the shades, actually, I've had no problems with. I've used all of these shades somewhat in a different eye looks. The mattes and everything blend out really nicely. I just find these two shades, and I'm gonna swatch them. So I didn't insert swatches, and I'm probably not gonna insert a bunch of swatches just because there's been a ton of videos done on this. But yeah, I'm gonna put these up here. So this is the duochrome rhodium, and this is Deep Dive. I don't know, this is a little bit lighter than it comes off in the pan, and this to me is like such a sad duochrome. Like, you really have to build this guy up to see any of the duochrome effect, and honestly it just kind of comes off as like slightly black with like a little bit of purple. It's actually really close to this shade when you apply it. Like, in the pan it doesn't look like that, but swatched it totally does. I just think these two shades are kind of like duds, specifically this duochrome. Like, you can get duochromes from many indie brands, even like affordable brands that are so much more vibrant. I know even for multi-dimensional shadows, like Pat McGrath has that new one in her Divine Rose 2 that looks beautiful. But particularly me, I've tried Davina ones as well as Sydney Grace, and they're like steps above what's in here. And like I said, there's affordable brands that have duochromes that are better than this. I just think Natasha Denona can do better on those shades. Like, for the price point, I want something like phenomenal. So that was kind of a disappointment. The rest of the shades though, like I said, I love Silk. I love all these metallic bronze shades. This peachy shade is really, really beautiful, like absolutely stunning. Let's get one of Silk. So this is Silk, like look at that. No, that shade is gorgeous. One of my favorite shades. It's so beautiful and reflective. And then I'll do the shade Bliss down here. This shade is really pretty. It's not as reflective, but it's a pretty shade. So see that there? It kind of has like a duochrome effect to it too, but it's really beautiful. I love that shade. So I love like a lot of these shades. And like I said, the shimmers in here are beautiful. Even this true copper shade, this one right at the top. Like, look at that. So, so beautiful. So the rest of the palette I think is gorgeous. I do think if you like neutral kind of shadows, you are going to gravitate towards this and you are really going to like it. And the quality is good, other than I think those like two shadows, particularly the duochrome shadow, I'm not super stoked about. But other than that, I think if you're just buying this for a neutral palette, you're gonna like it. I will say if I could redesign this palette, I would put a couple more transition shades in here, maybe deeper, and then definitely a lighter kind of shimmer or even a lighter like bone color that I can use for my inner corners or my like above my brow bone. I actually went in with like a little elf palette to like add that pop in the inner corner because I didn't have that option in this palette. So it's not really like a full palette, but like if you are someone that always use highlight, you can use the highlight for that. But still, I was a bit disappointed with that, and it is something that I would change in the palette. I also think I would add more pops of like a peachy tone or like an olive tone, just something to tie in with the bronze colors because you can see these are like so similar. And I thought it might be a little bit different in person, but like these are very, very similar tones, like especially when you put them on the eyes. So I just think she could have played around with deeper, lighter shades and maybe added in a few more pops of color because there isn't a ton of pops of color in here. I know it's a bronze palette though, but still. Like the Artist Couture, one of the new ones they came out with, I cannot think of the name. Is it Supreme Nudes? That one has like the green and like the shimmery green. Like it has a couple pops of like neutral colors to add in with the bronze. I think that would have been a good idea for this, or even playing more on that like peachy tone like she has here. Maybe do like a lighter peachy pink tone. Something to really like draw the eye in. I don't know. I think the reason why I kind of regret this is because it is at such a high price point, and I feel like I have tons of these kinds of palettes in my collection already. It has nothing to do with the quality. The quality is pretty good, but for the price point, I think you can or have this already in your collection, and it's not something that you need. So don't go out and run and buy this just because it's Natasha Denona, unless you're like a diehard fan, like you're going to buy it anyway. But if you are looking at this and thinking it's the best everyday bronze palette, I don't think it's the best. I think you can get better. I think it's good and the quality is decent overall. There is a couple issues, and I do think there could be a couple like shades added to the palette or taken out. But other than that, it's a decent palette, and I feel bad saying I regret it, but I do. I wish I hadn't have bought it because I have this a million times over in my collection. I have a big collection. I shouldn't have bought it, but I did. I'm going to keep it and I'll obviously continue using it. You can make really pretty looks with it, but I wanted to give you my thoughts on it. And that's pretty much my thoughts on it, guys. Let me know what you think. Have you tried this palette? Have you purchased it? Do you plan on purchasing it anyway? Like if you guys do, I totally get it. As soon as I seen it, I wanted it, even though I have like these shades 50 times over. So I get it. But yeah, guys, if you did like this video, make sure you do give me a thumbs up. It really does help my channel out. Hit that subscribe button as well as the bell notification if you want to stay updated with my videos. You guys know I'm not the most frequent uploader. But yeah, guys, I love you so, so much, and I will see you in my next video. Bye, guys.